Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Welcome back to Bitch is a Bad Word. If you're new here, I'm Lindsay. I'm one mom with 4 kids and 0 fancy degrees behind my name. But I do know a lot about domestic abuse, and this is a show to help you navigate your road through and out of domestic abuse with all the besties that have all the letters behind their names to help you understand what you're going through, know that you're not crazy, know it's most likely a them problem, not a you problem. And we are going to give you all the tools you need to put in your bestie toolkit as you navigate this new life. So I have with me today the most fascinating woman. Her name is Carla Litto. She is an expert, an author, and she has a few letters behind her name. She's here to help us understand the personality types that fall in line with BPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder, and unpack all those letters to help us understand who we're dealing with and the people in our lives that, you know, may or may not be diagnosed this way. So welcome to the show, Carla. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me on. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited. Your book is so funny, by the way. It's like witty. You really spin it with this like lighthearted approach. The book is called Outsmarting Egomaniacs: How to Respond to Narcissists and Master Manipulators.
Yeah.
So your book, I love how you take this witty approach. You really make it relatable. I always find that when you're struggling with understanding what you're going through, especially coming out of a domestically abusive relationship, when I hear certain terms or topics, it's really hard to like unpack it. And the way that you approach this feels very familiar, feels like you're talking to your bestie, feels like you may have experience yourself, either personally or through your practice. So will you share your journey of how you arrived writing this book?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles. I've been a therapist for about 12 years now. I always wanted to be a therapist my whole life. I grew up in what you'd call a dysfunctional family with abuse, you could say. And I won't name names in a public forum, but I'm very familiar with these personality disorders. And I think that starting from when I was a kid, I was really fascinated by human behavior and psychology and read all the books and knew one day that's what I wanted to do. And not right after college, but eventually I went ahead and pursued graduate education and got 2 master's degrees in psychology. One of them is the one that yields licensure to become a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California, which is what I do. And so I, very quickly and easily, I developed this specialization in personality disorders and particularly narcissistic abuse recovery. Because as a therapist, I found that I was very attuned to manipulation tactics, and I could see I could see when that was happening very quickly, whether it was a couple in front of me or even just an individual talking about their situation. Often they come in even saying that their partner is calling them a narcissist and doing the whole projection thing, and they want to really kind of self-reflect. And that's when my antenna goes up and I'm like, okay, let's
You see the flag waving right away.
oh yeah, first of all, growing up around it and then having the education around it, I have my intuition is very strong. I can like see, a predator coming a mile away. like, um, and so usually when I have someone in front of me who's not one and is being accused of one and wants to really kind of look at themselves, and they're telling me about all the things that they've done that might be naughty, or, oh, when I was in high school, maybe I was kind of a bully to this one person. And it's like, okay, I already know that this is someone who wants to desperately improve her relationship, desperately improve themselves. And so I just, whether it was an individual or a couple or whoever was in front of me, I really wanted to help people unpack what manipulation is and know when it's happening to you. And I helped a lot of my clients kind of get clarity in their relationship, whether it was things that they're doing and their role in it and how they were maybe making things worse even, but also even just understanding what's actually happening and what's their part and what's not their part and what you can and can't fix. And I've also always wanted to be a writer. I mean, I've been my whole life, I wanted to write a book. So it just occurred to me one day, I could reach more people writing my clients' stories and even some of my own personal things that come up, not really necessarily domestic abuse things, but just, friends, even just any story that kind of captures what happens when you're in an abusive or toxic relationship, to help the reader identify that. So, yeah, I made it really relatable and easily digestible on purpose because I wanted anyone that this is happening to be able to pick up the book and quickly identify, oh, that's what he does. That's what she does.
Mm-hmm.
And also laugh a little bit and have fun with it because it's heavy material and I don't want the whole process to be like triggering. I want it to also be empowering, where you see some good comebacks or you see some sarcasm directed at the toxic person and you're like, okay, this is fun. This is going to give me the tools. So I like want to give the tools while we're having fun a little bit. So
It's important because the person that's going through this situation, or especially in a domestic abusive situation, they already know dark. Dark is just a regular Tuesday. So I really hope on this show it's the same principle. Like, let's bring you out of the darkness, shed the light, help you understand that what you're going through can be, the light is on the other side of this. So let's give you the tools. Let's give you the wit back and that strength. Because when you can have a good comeback, when you can have just that a little bit of understanding that, the person on the other side of this is just like a little bully.
yeah,
And, you can kind of manage them that way and use sarcasm and use humor as your trauma response. That's okay. That's what I do. There's so many times that I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, yeah.
Like laugh through the crazy.
You have a great sense of humor, and
Oh, thanks.
yeah, and it like shows, your where you are in the process, and that this is like, in the recovery phase of coming out of it. I think what happens is when you're in it, it really, you lose yourself. It really chips away at your sense of self-worth. And if you were a bubbly person or a funny person or a confident person or a strong person, whatever you were before, it just shrinks. And to accommodate them and to continue the relationship, you cannot be in that relationship unless you shrink yourself really small and forget all of your values and all of the things that matter to you. You lose yourself. And then when you end the relationship, it's really about focusing on how to get yourself back and building your sense of self back. And knowing your worth and all of that, so you can get back to who you were before the person came along and just ravaged you, basically.
Before the clown show started.
Yeah, the clown show.
Yes. I lived through that way too long. I really want to unpack personality types. So we hear narcissism all the time. I'm hearing it like, I mean, way too much, probably kind of the same way. People are just throwing around the words like psychopath or schizo or like kind of like we did. Like, but there's a real diagnosis and there's real personality traits that people have. Specifically, though, I want to talk about BPD, borderline personality disorder, because like I want to know, how is it different? Because it kind of tracks the same way as narcissistic personality disorder or NPD, but it isn't. It's like a whole other animal, right?
Yeah, they can be similar, but there is a distinction, especially what type of borderline personality disorder. And when I say that, there aren't official types, but because the criteria for borderline personality disorder is so mixed, we in clinical language we call it heterogeneous. So there's just like a lot of diverse criteria. So when you need to meet 5 out of the 9 criteria, it can look any kind of different way when you see what those criteria are. So I'll kind of like explain the chief characteristics of what borderline personality disorder is. And the main kind of overview is that it's characterized by instability of interpersonal relationships. So what that looks like is unstable personal relationships. Usually looks like they will, they'll go from idealizing you to vilifying you very quickly. So as soon as you disappoint them or let them down, you've gone from like you're a goddess to now you're the devil, kind of just that kind of rapid shift, because they can't hold two things at once. It's that we call that splitting. So there's a lot of that where they very quickly kind of just relationships flip flop like that.
So you go from like this totally valued queen to devalued cunt. It's
There
the
you
queen to
go.
cunt swing.
there you go. Yeah. You'll see that. And you never know when it's coming, so it's like everything's good. And then all of a sudden, you're a bitch because of this one thing that happened, or, and they see you in a completely different way. You're either good or bad. And that's a very defining borderline personality disorder trait when you see that happening. Also, the abandonment issues. So they have frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. Sometimes that looks like very clingy, kind of needy behavior. Sometimes, that's like one type of borderline personality disorder. The other one, where maybe it's the more narcissistic type, it can look like just being very overly possessive and controlling, because attention towards anyone else could trigger abandonment for them, or a perception of abandonment or threat. They also tend to be very impulsive. So it's combined with sometimes other issues like addiction or just other impulsivity issues.
Sure.
There's also the recurrent suicidal behavior. So now that's an interesting one and a tricky one, because with borderline personality disorder, if we're just looking at borderline personality disorder, they are usually gestures or threats, again, to cope with their perceived abandonment. Now, I'm not saying that anyone with borderline personality disorder, if they threaten suicide, it's not real, because sometimes borderline personality disorder is combined with major depressive disorder. And major depressive disorder is probably the condition where you are most likely to really want to commit suicide. So, but when we're just talking about borderline personality disorder on its own, there are frequent threats that are not, that don't indicate imminent suicide.
I have experience with that where excuse me, my experience is anytime you are kind of coming out of the other end of an argument where you may be winning, and it's clear that you're right, that there's a disconnect for a little bit, and then there's this downward mood swing, and then the mood swing for me would turn into just very, I'm going to walk in front of a train kind of conversations where, you're like, wait, what? Like, how are we here? How are we having a conversation? Do you need help?
Yes.
And, I would offer the help, and then they would mock me for reaching out, and oh, well, you don't really mean it, or whatever it was. But there was a lot of just sort of like random threats about suicide that are scary when you're on the receiving end of it, because you want to take it seriously. But there was also a lot of crying wolf. And then you get to the point where if you don't engage in the behavior and you don't respond, then you're a cold stone bitch, because
Yes.
you didn't reach back out.
That right there is the manipulation. So that is the way that people with borderline personality disorder will manipulate you to cope with their abandonment issues, because what they're doing right there is playing the victim when they're caught. And I mean, this applies to narcissists too, without the suicide element. Just when they're caught, suddenly the only way that they can still kind of escape accountability is to become the victim. So, so what they're doing is they can't argue that they're right. So they're just going to go, okay, I'm so bad. Then I should just end it right now. I should walk in front of a bus. Like, that's it. I suck. I don't deserve to live, because now what they're doing is that push pull. They want you to come back with, no, you're amazing. I don't mean any of that stuff, because they just want to restore those good, yummy feelings of just tell me how great I am, because I can't handle this. Like narcissism, it's either you're good, it's either good or bad. And
it's the same for them. They're either good or bad.
With narcissism, it's more about, I need to be the best. I need to be extraordinary. And so when you challenge me, you're saying I'm not that. And that means I'm no good. It's not that the good or bad, like someone with borderline personality disorder, if you do one thing to upset them, it's like, okay, that person's the worst. And then, you know what I mean? But with narcissism, it's, I need to maintain this image. So if you challenge that, I can't cope with the idea that I've made a mistake, because I don't make mistakes. With borderline personality disorder, it's, oh no, you don't like me anymore. Let me get you to nourish me again, because I don't want you to leave or be mad at me. So I want
Okay.
that nourishment again. So it's more about the neediness, don't leave me. Whereas the narcissism is more about, I'm special and amazing. Don't you dare challenge that and make me the bad guy, because I'm perfect.
Jesus. So you can be like, we say zero-sum game. There's you're not going to win this argument with either personality type. And can you have BPD and be narcissistic, or are they separate?
You could, well, you could have a combination of personality disorders. You absolutely could have both. But sometimes what you have is one or the other with traits from the other. So you can have borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits, right?
Okay.
And so that for me is that's the most difficult. That's the most, that's the hardest.
Because they're probably not going to go say, I have a problem, I need help.
Right.
I have this personality, they're not going to most likely go and seek the help that they need. And then this is not a condition that can be treated without extensive therapy, right? Or like, you can't just take a pill for this.
Right. You can't take a pill for this, and narcissists don't change. And we were talking once, and you asked me like, if people with borderline personality disorder are willing to see that to recognize that they have borderline personality disorder and get treatment, because real narcissists don't. And what I would say is, it depends on which of the borderline criteria they have, and what type of just borderline personality disorder they have. And so when you have narcissistic traits with borderline personality disorder, they absolutely they will not want to admit that they have borderline personality disorder because the narcissism is shielding their self-reflection. And so that's why it makes it even worse, because here you have all of this instability that maybe you could get some treatment for their symptoms, but the narcissism won't allow them to look at themselves. And so there are some people with borderline personality disorder, many people with borderline personality disorder who admit to the diagnosis, are not shamed by the diagnosis, and even in a lot of ways feel relieved that there's some kind of label or classification or hey, I belong to this group. And also this explains why I think I act crazy sometimes and my partner is having, we're having a hard time. So they're fine with that label and that diagnosis. And I think that that's when there is not any, or maybe less, or not any traits of narcissism, and it's really just the pure BPD of interpersonal instability and frantic fear of abandonment. And that's when it looks more needy, clingy, and less controlling, and let's make sure that I'm the center of attention at all times kind of. I'm making a very broad distinction because, in my opinion, and a lot of clinicians agree with me, there are probably thousands of ways to see a profile of borderline personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is more clear of what you might picture, even though they have their own little types too and all that, sure. But you never really know what you're getting, except that what you know you're going to get is unstable mood, emotion dysregulation. They're unstable in some way, and in an extreme way.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to unpack this bag of mixed nuts that you're talking about and talk about what dysregulation looks like and whether or not BPD always leads to potential domestic abuse in a relationship. So when we come back, we will unpack all those nuts with Carla Litto. We'll be right back, besties. Hey, besties, it's Lindsay from Bitch is a Bad Word podcast, and I was so excited when Cozy Earth reached out and wanted to sponsor our show because I love their products. Their bath towels are huge. They've got awesome prints on all their PJs. Their sheets are perfection. I love snuggling up with my kiddos, reading my texties from my exties. They are soft, they are silky. Most importantly, they keep me cool all night long. They've got your back with a 40% off coupon code using the code word BESTIES at checkout. I promise you, you are going to love everything that they have. 40% off using our coupon code BESTIES at CozyEarth.com. And if they offer you a post-purchase survey, let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Bitch is a Bad Word. All right, so I want to touch back on what it's like to have an argument with somebody with BPD, because as we know, in a healthy relationship, it's important to be able to have conflict and work through it, hear both sides of the argument, and then find a, bridge and move forward and close it out. When you're with, in my experience, when I was with someone who I think may have this personality type, I could never win an argument. It was like and when I tried to argue my point, or when I wanted to be heard, I was often called crazy, or, like I'm misrepresenting the facts, or you don't remember. I was always gaslit. I was told I was lying. I was told whatever it was. You're sitting there going no, this is like a true accounting of my experience with you, and I want to work through it. And then they would oftentimes, just like I say, you're like living in this clown show, you're on this carnival ride, like get me the fuck off this place right now. And I would usually just give in and give up and just, okay, whatever, you win, fine, I'm just done. I'm so tired.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't feel good, because you're not left feeling in any way heard or seen or loved or validated, which we need all those things. And then the core issue still lies there. There's still the problem. It never gets closed out. It's not water under the bridge. And in fact, I think it causes those water levels to rise to the point where you're sort of drowning in in conflict and chaos. So how do you win an argument with the president of the clown show? I mean, the ringleader. How do we do this?
I would reframe trying to win an argument with trying to be heard and seen and understood and at least validated. And then together you can reach resolution. But when you're dealing with a narcissist or someone manipulative, they can't arrive at that initial stage of hearing you when it challenges their perception of themselves. And that's why you can't get anywhere. That's why you feel like you can't win, because you can't even get to the part where they hear your feelings and recognize them as valid, which is the first stage. Um, you know, whether they're narcissistic or they have borderline personality disorder, they don't want to be challenged and they have a hard time looking at themselves and their part in it. So with borderline personality disorder, another chief characteristic that we didn't get to that really goes with this is the inappropriate, intense anger that is out of control. So they really don't. We mentioned before the break the self-regulation component. They cannot self-regulate, so they cannot soothe their feelings. When they get triggered, something kind of snaps, and in that moment they cannot control their bout of anger. So it's like they have episodes.
Okay.
And they're in kind of a rage state. So when you go from anger to rage, like rage is like you've lost all reason too, and they get to that place. And if you have anger, sometimes you can still kind of reason and see another side, but they quickly go from being triggered to rage, like that.
Okay. Yeah, it's like 0 to 10.
Uh-huh. And you can't reason with them. Now, here's the distinction again. I would say if you're feeling like you can't get through, I like that language maybe better than winning. Because with couples in an argument, no one person really wins. You're like, you both listen and understand each other, and then eventually you get to a resolution. And it could be, you lodge a complaint about their bad behavior and they hear it, right? And then they're like,
Right.
well, but this is what was going on for me. And you hear that too. But then it's like, okay, but I shouldn't have done that. And I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And I'll be mindful of this thing that I do that is insensitive and that you don't like, right? I mean, so it's not really anyone's winning, but the person who's bringing up their feelings has to be able to express that and be heard and understood.
Safely.
Yes.
Safely.
Yes.
Because that's what I find. Like, I mean, I like that you said that. So if you're and I'm relearning now all of the things, because I always felt like it was like I have to win because I was always losing. So now I'm in a healthy relationship. When I bring up conflict, it's like, it's true. If you're winning the argument, your partner's losing, and that's not what you want. You both want the relationship to be healthy. You both want to be heard, seen, validated, and nobody's winning. You guys are coming together and, working through it. When you're in an unhealthy relationship and potentially abusive relationship, that 0 to 10, when you bring up a problem, you've exposed something, you've touched a nerve, they go from 0 to 10. And then in that rage cycle, that's potentially where the danger happens and the abuse, physical or whatnot. Or they're in this rage. And I like the term blind rage because I would experience this where this rage would happen, shit would be broken, things would be flown around the room, just like you're sitting there going like, what in the actual fuck is happening right now? How did we go from like, I didn't like the way you made me feel last night to this? And it's very confusing. It feels extremely scary.
Mhm.
And then they come down from it and it's like, they were outside of themselves, or that's what they claim, and they don't have any memory. But I'm wondering, is it they don't have any memory because they were in a blind rage, or they will not take accountability?
Could be both. And it depends on the person. It depends on really like how disturbed they are, if there's substance abuse involved and that kind of thing. And the reason too that they can't take it in is because they're doing everything to avoid that shame state, to not touch their shame. And so it's really important. So, you asked me like, well, how do you argue? What do you do? You definitely don't keep trying to win. And you definitely, even at a certain point, have to stop trying to be heard and seen and validated with somebody who cannot take that in and cannot self-reflect. Because if self-reflecting means they're touching their shame, and that is like that's explosive to them. Narcissists are doing everything to avoid really looking at themselves so that they can maintain this fictitious image of themselves as amazing and perfect and superior to others. So if you press that shame button and fuck with that, it's going to explode on you.
Right.
Don't play with that. It's better to disengage, let them think whatever they want, and learn how to set your own boundaries and protect yourself. With borderline personality disorder, similar but different. When they go into that rage state, they're emotionally dysregulated. So everything you're saying in that moment, it's not getting through. It's not landing. It's not making sense. They can't come down from that rage. And all they want, really, when they have the frantic fear of abandonment, is nourishment. It's really about come back and love me. It's like, I'm going to act vile, but I want you to come back and make me feel good again.
Which is really hard to do, by the way. If you like, I found myself always kind of going like kind of crazy. Like, you have to hear me. You have to like coming at him with like more information about how I like need to be, no, I'm giving you more facts and data and this is how it happened. And I was sort of coming at them and later looking back like, wow, I look like freaking nuts too, going like, but hear me out, but hear me. No. And I always found myself just sort of also kind of like matching that level, a little bit of just like begging for them, like, how do you not see this? How do you not understand it? Just seems so simple. So then you sort of engage in this, like following them around, trying to like, hey, wait, like just be normal, because a normal person would be able to clearly hear you and understand. So what I'm hearing you say is like, they've got like earmuffs on. They're not listening. They can't hear you. It's just like, la, 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 la. And what I find is in that moment, if you keep engaging, that's where there's a danger component that's going to happen. And I noticed that they flipped the script on you really quickly. Like, look how nuts you are. I'm asking you, like, look how you are, look how you're behaving. And then that's, again, you're back on that crazy train.
In domestic abuse situations, they will provoke you into a rage and then point at your crazy behavior. That's when they calm down, because the thing is, when they're out of control, they're raging. And if you join them, now they see you as angry and out of control. And that's gratifying for them in a way, because now you've just stepped into the ring with them. Okay. So, you're duking it out together. And and so now they can just point to you and say, no, look how crazy, you are, look what you're doing.
Yep.
And they don't recognize that they incited that or that they are participating in that. It's all you. So you're taking the bait. When you see that they become unreasonable, when they become abusive, when they show contempt, when they do any of these things, if they're not showing a willingness to problem solve with you and listen and mutually understand, if that's not what's going on, I recommend that you disengage and stop trying to force your perception on someone who won't or can't hear it. And you set your boundary. You just say firmly, like, okay, I see this isn't going anywhere, or I refuse to have a conversation in this hostile tone. We can revisit this, when we're both calmer. If you accuse them of needing to calm down, no, then you just
forget it. No, because we say they're master baiters. They literally they love to cast this bait. They love you to like find that shiny thing. They hook you, and then they just freaking yank and pull. And yeah, they are just they're masturbating.
Right. The tactics or the tools that I provide in my book are really about holding on to yourself and not getting roped into their bullshit, you know,
Right.
because that's the way to protect yourself. If you're not going to get through, quit banging your head against the wall and start.
You don't have to come to the fight. You don't,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah. One of the bullet points in my book is you don't have to attend every argument you've been invited to.
I love that. Like RSVP, decline, no fucking thank you.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done, because if you're living with them, they're there and there's like this constant, like, you want to feel validated. You're never feeling validated by people like this. So then I'm hearing you say what we need to do is, when we're in the situation, is realizing that your validation is going to have to come from within. You're going to have to, if you have to stay with, if you're choosing to stay with this person, or you're co-parenting with this person, their personality type is set. They're fully cooked. This is who they are. It's up to you to do you have to make the adjustments and seek validation from yourself, do your own healing,
Yeah.
understand it's
So
not you, it's them.
sometimes when it's not a full-blown disorder and you make those changes, a lot of times you'll see when someone steps away from the relationship, that's when they're willing to really look at their role, because they're losing someone they care about, and then they're willing to see it. And now this is not someone with a full-blown personality disorder, because the nature of the disorder means they cannot. But people with these traits, people who are emotionally immature, let's say, when you start to set boundaries, or when you step away from the relationship, even they're able to see their role and go, oh, well, wait a minute, because within grief, there's the bargaining stage. And that's when people go, oh, well, what if I had done, but if only I had, right? And if you're capable of that, because you don't have a personality disorder, that's when, if you have a partner who acts out, or is emotionally immature, or it feels like it's all about them, or they're reactive when their feelings get hurt. If you participate in that by continuing to orbit around them and walk on eggshells, as they say, then you're just going to keep it going. You're positively reinforcing it. You're enabling it. The moment you say, yeah, I'm not having this anymore, like, for me this isn't healthy, and and if you leave the relationship, anything that is dysfunctional in the relationship, when you leave the relationship, that's when it has a chance of maybe changing or stopping. But as long as you
But if they
it doesn't matter how mad you get. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them this, and that doesn't work for me. It doesn't matter if you yell. It doesn't matter if you cry. You're there. So that they don't have to, they can keep bullshitting you, because you're not going anywhere. The moment you leave, if there's a chance of them improving or changing or recovering or whatever, that's when it can happen. So
But if they're full blown BPD,
they probably,
when you leave, they're going to like fakely bargain with you. And in my experience, like, I'm so bad, I'm the worst, please come back. I'll do anything to fix it. And there's like the groveling and the begging and you have to believe me that I'm going to be different. In my situation, I didn't go back. I went back 5 or 6 times during very abusive fights, and I would have to leave for safety. But then I always found some way, guilt or whatever. We had children, I'd come back. But when I finally made the decision to leave for good, I saw this person via text and a few times in real life, where I never went back sexually. We never hooked up, nothing like that. But we had to co-parent. And we would go to dinners together to try to be like this normal co-parent. It was such bullshit. But I'm like, I was reconned in these moments, like seeing this person, like, holy shit, you're not so bad. You're kind of fun to have dinner with, and sushi's nice, and maybe we could do this again. But I'd be like, give your head a shake, Lindsay. Like, that's not happening. Like, this isn't real, because they go back to, like I said, they're these convenience men. Like, they want to serve you up what they know you want.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of bargaining, and there was a lot of times where I would sort of like go back and forth in my mind. Like, if this person on this text message or this person at this dinner could stay this way forever, I could do this.
Yeah.
The second I flexed a boundary, though,
Mhm.
you fucking bitch.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, there he is. That's all I need. Okay, done. Check. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So they're
You're,
not capable. They're kind of in this like combustible state.
yeah, you're bringing up an important point, and that's you're talking about the cycle of abuse. And so, if this person is abusive, if this person does have one of these disorders, or severe traits of these disorders, then it there you risk getting caught up in the cycle of abuse, which starts with what they call the honeymoon period, or love bombing, right, where they do everything to seduce you back, and they're on their best behavior and everything seems great, and then the next moment of conflict, or the next argument, their baseline behavior seeps out, and you see it kind of restart all over again. And then you have the big, explosion, and then you leave, and then they miss you and they want you back, and you're back to square one with the honeymoon phase all over again. And so when you're in an abusive relationship, be sure that you are caught in the wheel of abuse. It is a cycle, and it will always repeat. And it's never going to just magically go away unless the person does some real inner work to work through these issues. And if it's a disorder, even that stuff is not, there's no treatment to make personality disorders go away. In some cases, there is a possibility to alleviate some symptoms, but when you're talking about an abusive person, they, sometimes people are very young and they're emotionally immature, and they have anger, and they do get help, and they can learn that. That's different from having narcissistic personality disorder or borderline personality disorder. I want to be clear that lots of people have anger issues, and they go to therapy, and they anger management, and they can learn to regulate and manage their anger. They don't have a personality disorder. They had anger issues. Maybe that was modeled for them at home, or maybe they have ADHD and they're impulsive, or there are a lot of reasons why someone would have anger issues and not have a disorder. And so, in rare cases, you could see someone improve, but I would say if they're very young and still maturing, I mean, look, your brain isn't fully developed until you're about 25. So, if you're like young kids, or you're in college, this is your boyfriend, I mean, like, maybe it can get better with help. But when you see it get worse and worse and worse, and when you see a full grown adult, late 20s, 30s and up, and they keep acting this way, and they will not even acknowledge that they have any role in your conflict, and it just gets worse and worse, then you probably are dealing with someone with a disorder or with these severe traits. And so, we want to be careful not to say like, well, everybody, is a narcissist or, has a personality disorder, because in rare cases, people, if they get treatment, they can improve, but they probably don't have a personality disorder. If this just keeps happening, and if the person has never acknowledged their misdeeds or their bad behavior and validated you, and they keep flipping the script and making it about you and that you're the problem, that's when you give up and just, see them for what they are, and quit trying to force your reality on someone who's insisting on a distorted reality where they're never at fault. They're
Never at fault.
never at fault.
That's the hardest thing. Yeah, because we all fuck up. We all but
Mhm.
and it's a very freeing feeling to like fuck up and say, "Hey, you know what I did? Not cool. I'm sorry. How can we heal from it?" That feels so good. And on the other side, I mean, if there's no accountability, and you're going to just keep like going, like beating your head against the wall, trying to have them see your point. And then again, we say they're going to flip the script, and they're going to say that, you're crazy, or like you're the one with the impulse. Like, you stop talking about it. Why are you still talking about it? Like, and
If you're shamed for
it's not worth it.
if you're shamed for bringing it up, if you're told that, the problem is actually you, if they never listen to what they did and think about how they might have made you feel bad and take real accountability for that, not, I'm sorry you feel that way, but, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. No, that wasn't the right thing to do. I'm sorry, or I'll work on that. If they never say or do those things, then, the best thing you can do is, try to get away from that situation. And, you can give someone one chance to improve. I'm sorry, I'm going to get better. And, you want to see that they're actually taking steps to improve. But if they're not taking steps, and if they're pretending to take steps, but actually the same thing keeps happening, then, they're full of shit. Run,
Run.
run.
You say you have to go. I want to, before we take a break, I do want to ask you the difference between BPD. Does it present differently in men and women?
There might be some subtle nuances. But then, when I say that, I'll say men are like this and women are like that, but you'll see women who have the things that men have too. So, it's hard to make those generalizations, but we can talk about what that nuance might look like a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. There's no QR code you can scan to be like, I wish we could just like walk up to someone and be like, tell me what's wrong with you? Because I don't have time right now anymore to like figure your shit out. And I can't do this again. So what's up? What's wrong? What's your diagnosis? Is that okay? But no, we can't. So I didn't know, it's like these personality types are what make these relationships so much more complex and complicated. So it's tough. So when we come back, I want to talk about co-parenting after you're out, because this is our goal. We want to give you the tools in your toolbox as you are healing on your journey. And if you have children with somebody with a BPD, you're going to face the same challenges that you had, but you'll just be able to go home to your own bed at night, which will be amazing, by the way. So we will be right back with Carla Litto.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
Okay, welcome back, besties. We have Carla Litto with us, and she is helping us unpack all the disorders that you may be dealing with. And she is going to help us maybe find some strategies of how to co-parent with someone with this personality trait. And, I hear you saying a lot, boundaries are important. But that term, honestly, for me, is really a little bit confusing. I know it seems like it shouldn't be, but maybe because I've spent so long in a very toxic and abusive relationship that I don't really know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So you say boundary, some people are like hard, rigid lines, and it's just like you can't be flexible, and it's like it's a hard no. But you can't be rigid, and you can't really, that's not healthy. I don't know. I don't think either, but just sort of saying, this is what it looks like. This is what is a clear boundary when you're co-parenting with your BPD?
Right. Well, let's start with
person.
what a boundary is in the first place, where, it's not an ultimatum and you're not controlling anyone. You're, first you're connected to what your values are and what matters to you. And you're letting the other person know that. And you're saying what you will or you won't do. And they still have a choice. They're presented now with a set of choices, and whatever they choose to do then gives you a set of choices. So if they don't respect your boundary, then maybe you don't stay in their relationship. Now, when you're dealing with your ex, this is already someone you've left the relationship of, right? And you have to navigate raising children together. It gets really complicated, and it must be really frustrating. And I'm sure you have a lot of stories, and you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I don't have, personal history with this, But I can tell you that whether it's your ex or anyone you're dealing with, you really want to make sure that you're not getting sucked into that vortex again. So something I advise my clients of a lot is stop having that argument about who did what in the marriage and who's right or wrong or who's the selfish one. You got to let go of that. None of that matters anymore. Now the focus, it's single issue focus. It's the kids. And so, if you're dealing with a narcissist, sometimes they don't really care about the kids, at least not in the way that you do, where you want what's best for them, because a narcissist wants what's best for them. So they like the image and they like to, see the kids and make sure the kids still think that they're amazing, but they don't actually want to do the hard work or do what's best for the kids if it is not fun for them.
Or if it can fuck around with your day.
Right. Like maybe, he wants to play golf and like stand on the grass and drink beer and he doesn't want to pick up the kids at school, or like something like that. And, whereas someone without that disorder would be like, well, I'll leave early or I won't play golf that day,
Right.
So in any argument, and, I outline this in the book, like boundary setting and even like things to say and do when shit happens. Right. So you want to start with what you agree on. And what do you agree on what's prioritizing the children and what's best for the children. Get him to start there. Not this is what I think we should do, because you know what's best for the children, because then he's going to want to disagree with you, or he doesn't care what you think is right because he has his own opinion. And if there's usually there's a universal of this is obviously what's best for the kids, but now because you're saying this is what's best, he doesn't want to take orders from you. So
no. Oh.
Yeah, right. So it's very important that you get him, you want to be in agreement as much as possible. So first start with some obvious basic things, let's have a conversation about, blah, blah, blah. We both agree that you and I should make decisions based on, what's best for Johnny and Jenny, of course he's going to say yes, because especially if he's a narcissist, he doesn't want to look bad. So yeah, of course. Okay.
Do you just think it's probably best to use a Talking Parents app or My Family Wizard or just something that's, the least amount of communication as possible? Here's what the week looks like. Here's what the month looks like. I went through like no contact for a very long time because I needed to, because the text message abuse was freaking next level, that we have a whole segment called Texties from the Xties about it. And I was like, I can't do it, because it was you're constantly engaging, right? So you hear the ping, you want to respond, you want to engage, and it's not reasonable. It's not like, I find that the best, if you're in a high conflict, abusive relationship, using a court app or, Talking Parents app, at least you don't have to respond right away. And what I've found, unless there's an absolute emergency, they don't give a shit about figuring out how they're going to get to football or basketball or school. Like your hardest challenge is probably going to be summer and extracurriculars. So how do you just say, I'm not doing this, I'm not engaging in this, in this conflict. And the kids need it too, because they've been through enough shit. They don't want to see you guys continuously fighting, even after their like life has been divided. So apps are great.
Yeah, anything you can do to minimize or reduce your interaction with your toxic ex is what's advised. Like, you really don't want to be arguing back and forth ever about anything. So if you can use those apps, that's best. Any discussion that you have should be single issue focused on prioritizing the kids and what's best for them. Keep your own opinions, emotions, feelings about the marriage, desires out of the equation when you're having these conversations, because he's not interested, or she isn't interested in hearing about what you want or accommodating you. And there isn't anything that's going to get through where it's like, this is what's best. So you focus on what's best for the kids, and you ask him to agree on before you even bring up an issue, do you agree that, we want to do what's best for them? What do you think is best for them? Do you agree that this is what's best for them? And you kind of, you approach it in a collaborative way. So it's not about what I want versus what you want. So anytime you can get them to agree beforehand about anything, even if it's about how important it is, to kind of keep them down. So you're not coming in with a fight. Get them to agree and press that self-image button. Anytime you can point out that it makes them look good, or your kid will be really happy and think you're amazing because he was asking, just kind of see what, just don't make it a battle of wills because you'll lose.
You will lose. And also manage your expectations, because as we've been sort of unpacking all this, they may agree with you on Monday, and then like on the day that the actual thing needs to happen, they could decide to just blow it the fuck up because they're on one of their cycles, or they're in something, or they're going through their own. I'm like learning that, they have a whole other life that that you're not privy to anymore.
Right.
So and if you're not engaging with them on a regular basis, you don't know where they are in their own mania. And it becomes a little bit like,
yeah, suddenly he has a date with Vanessa and he's not picking up Johnny. And,
yeah, like this doesn't work for me anymore. So, or they like decided it's just, I sometimes think like they just want to fuck around for fun. Like maybe they're not getting their hit somewhere else, so they just want to see if they can get it from you. And of course, if you're this like protective parent, you want the best for the kids. And I don't know, sometimes the advice is just like, if you can figure it out on your own, it's almost better to just say, hey, these are the things that we're doing. And we kind of talk about, we have a friend who their kid, because the ex doesn't want to participate in anything unless he's organized it. So she's like, well, here's the deal. He goes to baseball on my day and he doesn't go to baseball on his day. So she goes to the coach and she's like, just so you know, this is like a total inconvenience for you, but he's only going to come up 50% of the time because this is our situation. And she's found that the coach has been accommodating, and then her life is less complex because she's like, whatever, I paid for it. You go on my time. And then the kid is like, understands that that's the situation. And her goal was that maybe the kid could convince dad, hey, I really like going to baseball. Can we, like, I'm not going with you.
Yeah. You don't make it a you problem. So, unfortunately, when they're really little and they have no voice, like that's a shame for the kid. And all you can really do is say like, oh, Johnny's really disappointed, but it is what it is. And let him know that.
No, Johnny doesn't tell me he's disappointed when he's at home with me. He actually says he doesn't like baseball.
Yeah, you don't argue.
Whatever.
So is that what he says?
Don't argue.
Yeah, you go, oh, that's what he says to you? Okay. That's not what I hear, but okay. You guys work it out. When he's at your house, you do what, you guys work out together. I've heard differently, but you guys do you at your house. You're in charge. You stay out of that argument. But yes, when the child's older, now you're fucking with the kid and his baseball, right? So,
right.
And then it becomes their issue because it's at his, he does what he wants at his house. And if you are pulled into the argument, you don't make it about you. You don't make it about what you want for your kid or what you think is right or wrong. No, you stay out of that. And it's, well, I just keep hearing that this is what Johnny really wants and he's feeling disappointed and let down by you. But, you do what you think is best.
I love that. I really want to make sure that we are not stigmatizing BPD as well. This is a show specifically designed, created to help women, but just because you have BPD doesn't make you an automatic abuser.
Well, you mentioned your friend's situation. And when I hear a story like that, of course, that sounds narcissistic to me. That, I don't know who that dad, and I don't know if he has a personality disorder or I don't, know a single thing about him. But when I hear a story like that to me reeks of narcissism. That's total egocentric, me behavior. I don't feel like taking you, or, that conflicts with my CrossFit schedule or whatever, like that's kind of what like the narcissistic dad kind of looks like, in my opinion. So,
okay.
I mean, I'm not
That's interesting too.
this person
Yeah, because it's about them.
yeah, I mean, it's one little story. I'm not obviously diagnosing them as a narcissist, but that sounds like narcissistic behavior for sure.
Oh, there you go. I'll let her know.
Yeah.
She'll be. So I'm like, what do you think it is? But yeah, so a stigma around BPD. I don't want anybody listening who's been diagnosed to think that we're stigmatizing you and saying you are an abuser. We're just sort of, I want to understand and sort of destigmatize it because if you've been diagnosed and you're getting treatment and you're understanding where you are, then you're in a better place than most. I want to know how challenging it is, though. Like in your experience, how many people have come to you and sought help that they need
For borderline personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't throw a number on it. And I can also say that each and every individual person has looked very different. But borderline personality disorder, um, people with borderline personality disorder do seek help. And a lot of them are looking for symptom alleviation. And, sometimes it can improve a bit. And again, we're talking about what kind of borderline personality disorder. Is it the kind that, is mixed up with depression, or is it the kind that has a lot of narcissistic traits? Is it, a lot of times it does combine with another disorder. So which disorder is that?
Okay.
So it's hard to say. I think what you're asking me is what's the prognosis? And my answer to that is it's hard to tell, but it is bleak and dismal. So that doesn't mean that they can't. I mean, I've seen some cases. I think I mentioned to you once, I have a couple who she was diagnosed with it. And I see the traits and a lot of the anger issues. Her anger has really improved. Now, the disorder doesn't go away. Does she still battle insecurity and, her fear of abandonment and all that stuff? Sure. But the acting out rageful anger has improved significantly with the work that.
Yeah, that's hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you born this way, or this is
Mm-hmm.
like I was hearing we've talked to some people who say narcissism is sort of developed over time from a traumatic experience or whatnot, but is a BPD, is this something you're born with?
All personality disorders, you're born with it, but it doesn't really present itself as diagnosable and can't be diagnosed until you're an adult and your prefrontal cortex is fully developed, which is, in your early 20s. So by 25. Okay. So what that means is, you're born with that genetic material where you're predisposed to have these traits, these personality traits. And then your environment will shape it so that it's more pronounced, where then it becomes a full-blown disorder. Or maybe amazing caregivers and successful parenting will help shape it in a direction where, the person has these personality traits, but they're not disordered. So it keeps it sort of mollified as opposed to amplified. Parenting that is that creates insecure attachments and that is neglectful or abusive is where you see these traits kind of grow into more of a full-blown disorder. So it's like the nature versus nurture. It's like you start with it and then the environment will shape it one way or another and will navigate how severe it becomes and whether it's a disorder or not. So, I mean, the short answer to your question is both. It's both. It's you're born with it and it's your environment.
Okay. Well, parents, I mean, it's not easy being a parent. You have a lot to do to nurture these people so that they become, good. Keep the goodness inside. We're going to take one final break. And when we come back, I would love for you to give our besties that one tool that they can put in their survivor toolkit. So we will be right back. All right, welcome back, besties. We are wrapping up with Carla Litto. We have unpacked so much today. Understanding BPD, we touched on the cycle of abuse, steps to healing, and just ways that you can start managing the person in your life with this dysfunction and this disorder and protect your peace, start to build your own boundaries, and really be able to walk into this new life, into this healing journey with some tools. So we're going to ask Carla, what is the one tool we can give our besties to put in their toolbox?
I'm going to go with the most like vague, thorough one that kind of covers as much as possible, which is set your boundaries. And then more importantly than that, after you've done that, detach from their reaction. So that's always the hardest part when you set a boundary is coping with your own guilt and feeling guilty for setting a boundary. But once you've set your boundary, you set it for a purpose. It's for you. It's not to harm them, and to remove yourself from what's going on in their head and stay focused on your own values, your own purpose, and what's best for you.
I love it. So keep your side of the street clean.
Yep.
Just stay in your own lane, besties, because it's freaking slippy, slidey, icy, muddy, all black ice on the other side. So just stay as clear as you can. I love having you on the show, by the way. I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
Because I feel like we could go on forever. Where can we direct our listeners to your work?
So my therapy website is carlalittotherapy.com. You can also find my book, which has a lot of tools for your toolkit, anywhere books are sold, including Amazon. And if you can scan a QR code, that is the QR code that takes you to Amazon, where the book is sold on Amazon. Oh, and you can follow me on Instagram at Carla Litto Therapy or at Carla Litto Therapy on Instagram as well.
You should follow her because she's really funny. And so Outsmarting Egomaniacs, How to Respond to Narcissists and Master Manipulators is the book. And you can check our show notes for all these resources that Carla is talking about. And there are hotlines and therapy programs, everything available to you. And we hope that you get to build this toolbox of resources and understand your boundaries and D&E, do not engage. Carla, thank you so much for your insight today. I love you. You are part of our BFF group of women, which is the, like the bitches fighting for freedom. We want to say you're an absolute badass. We welcome you to the club and we can't wait to have you back.
It's a pleasure to be here and I'll be thrilled to come back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What an amazing episode with your new bestie, Carla Litto. Now we have your favorite segment, Texties from the XDs. And this is a text message that I found that is in line and tracks with this episode that we were just discussing. When you're trying to reason with somebody that you're co-parenting with or in a relationship with, it's not always going to go the way you want it to go. So what we've learned is just to D&E, do not engage. And it's hard. I know. I feel you. So this is a text from the texty from the XD. After I left, we shared a house together. I had moved into a hotel. And then it was time to get down to business. How are we going to dismantle our lives together? Because we're both moving on. The relationship is over in its current form. And we have to move into a direction of healing and co-parenting and really dividing our lives. And I was homeless, living in a hotel, and obviously wanting to have some sort of resemblance of life, the kids, etc. So I was suggesting that I could stay in the house. He says, "I'm not trying to scare you, Lindsay. I'm hurt and I need to heal. I can't do that with you in my house." And I say, "I know you're on the deed and you like to use this as your control, but this is our family home." He says, "It could have been, Lindsay, but you lost your way." I say, let's work together to come up with a plan. I'll need a home for myself and the kids. He says, the kids are not going with you, Lindsay. And I say, yes, they will be with both of us. That statement is a threat, and now I feel like I have to call a lawyer. He says, of course the kids will be with both of us, but there will be rules, and you won't drive the conversation. And I say, you're right, the lawyers will. And that's all you can do. They need all the control. They need it. There's just no sense in trying to reason with them. So we've learned. Keep your side of the street clean, besties. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word. Remember, there is no safety in staying silent. If you're in immediate danger, please use 911. Leave and crash on a friend's couch. Find a shelter in your area. Do whatever you need to do to keep yourself and your kids safe. That is our most important goal for you. And we have resources linked on our show pages for you. We're going to build that toolbox that you can use to help you on your journey through and out of domestic abuse. We're here for you. Please reach out on our socials. Instagram at Bitch is a Bad Word Pod, TikTok at Bitch is a Bad Word, YouTube at Bitch is a Bad Word. And remember, we have a phone number, 331 Bitches. You can drop us a text message, leave a voicemail, share your texties from your XD, reach out for some help. I'm answering all of the messages personally and trying to give you some sort of guidance. Remember, I have no letters behind my name. I am not licensed in anything. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a therapist. I've just been through the shit and I want to help you. So thank you again for tuning in. We drop our episodes every Tuesday. So we will see you next Tuesday, besties. Our editor is Kevin Mackler. Our music was composed by Drew Kevorkian. Our producer and booker is Noea Murphy. Our art design was created by Eric Johnson and Kevin Roche. Our social media is managed by Taylor Jade and Samantha Bunting. Our cinematographer is Alexander Grzinski and Joe Melson. And this has been a Caliber Studios production. You can follow along the Bitch is a Bad Word podcast on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. We look forward to hearing from you, besties. Remember, we got your back, bitches. Bitches being bad.